Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first episode of Magic in Media, the podcast brought to you by the Vibe Collective and me, Carly D, a tarot reader and manager at the Vibe Collective. So, welcome. This is very exciting. This is our very first episode of what will be our weekly podcast, Magic in Media. So, this podcast blends magic with pop culture, news, current moments to show you that magic is indeed all around us every day. We find the metaphysical and magic in the world and in the world news and share it with you. So, we will cover stories that show astrology, tarot, crystals, Reiki, spiritualism, birth charts, and more. Just pretty much anywhere we see what we do showing up in media in today's current pop culture, and just showing you quite literally how there is magic in media, the mundane, and around us every day. So, this podcast will also have guests, we'll have special segments, special episodes with special themes, but overall, every week we will be covering stories that are happening now in pop culture, in current news, and where we see the connections with the metaphysical world, services, tarot, all that kind of stuff. So, every week we will be touching on what's going on, but we will also have some episodes that maybe cover certain books, certain movies that have a lot of different metaphysical connections and just kind of delving into different things. So this podcast will be growing with us. There will be guests, like we said, so lots of room to evolve, and we'll be doing all kinds of things. So welcome to our very first episode. And we are also going to follow somewhat of a format. I do want to let you know every week we will have a what you can do segment. So some kind of story or theme that we found that you can incorporate into your own life and actually used whatever this pop culture moment was to help enhance the magic around you. And that is really one of my biggest missions with the Vibe Collective, is to show you that little pieces of our day can contain so much intention, magic, and meaning. If we put it there, if we pay attention, if we tap into that awareness, the magic is truly all around us. And something I've really wanted to spread with the Vibe Collective is that it is very attainable. It is very out there for everyone. And I want to use this podcast as just another way to show you how it really is all around us, even when we aren't really watching or paying attention. So, we are going to jump into this week's stories and see where we are seeing magic in the media this week. So, very exciting first story. We've all been hearing about it. There was a robbery at the Louvre this weekend. So, on Sunday, October 19th, several robbers broke into the Louvre and stole several pieces of jewelry, really the remaining pieces of the French crown jewels. Now, we've heard a lot about this story, right? Very Oceans-esque, if you will. They were dressed as construction workers. They got away on motorcycles. It's all very something from a movie, right? Couple things I want to touch on with this pop culture story, this news story, really. And the first is this. In my research this week, quite a few people pointed out that in the case where they stole these pieces of jewelry, these French crown jewels, the Regent diamond was actually right next to the pieces of jewelry that they were stealing. So the Regent diamond is a 410 carat diamond. So a huge diamond. I believe it's like about this big, but it's enormous. It's this huge diamond, right? And while they stole lots of necklace pieces, some crowns, some tiaras, lots of people are asking, why wouldn't you steal this Regent diamond, this huge priceless diamond, which really everything they stole was priceless, but a 410 carat diamond right there, why didn't they take it? Well, of course, I found a story that explains that the Regent diamond, like many diamonds in history, is actually cursed. So, we are going to talk about the curse of the Regent diamond. So, like I said, this was right next to all the pieces that they were stealing in the Louvre. Why wouldn't these robbers take the Regent diamond? So, the story behind this particular gem, this diamond, is like we said, it's a 410 carat diamond. It's actually priceless, but estimated to be worth between 75 to 140 million, $140 million. Now the practical thing is this would be a very hard thing to fence as well, right? Aside from the curse, moving a diamond of that size without someone recognizing it or realizing it, it's almost so well known and priceless, it's not even worth robbing because how would you turn around and sell it? But there is, of course, this legend of the curse behind the diamond as well. So lots of people are saying, yes, it would be hard to fence it, but there's also a curse attached to pretty much anyone who has ever robbed, stolen, or even really worn this diamond. So let's go into the lore of the Regent diamond. So it turns out that this diamond was originally found in 1698 in India. And like most curses, it has a morbid, macabre kind of start. The man who found the diamond actually carved a wound, like a hole in his leg, to transport the diamond and smuggle it to the British Isles. There was an English captain on board who knew that this was happening, who knew they were moving this diamond. And the way the story goes is as soon as they did get to port, the captain betrayed the man and stole the diamond that was in his leg. Then he took the diamond, the Regent diamond, and sold it to another merchant. So the original person who had the diamond cut a hole in their leg to transport it. They were first betrayed by the first person that they had told about it, the captain on the ship. He took it and went and sold it to another merchant. So the story goes that after this captain stole the diamond and, sold it to another merchant once he got to the British Isles, he went on to squander all the earnings and eventually hang himself. So that's really the first two stories that are really the curse of how the Regent diamond started. So throughout the years, it's been stolen, moved around a lot, but ultimately it did end up in the French crown jewels, which is why it is in the Louvre. It was worn by several kings, the Louis and Marie Antoinette. So it was stolen in the French Revolution, found again by Napoleon, placed in his sword until his untimely death at the age of 51 when he was isolated on an island and, from what I can gather, left on the island at 51. Obviously, the diamond was not left with him. Whoever did that, took the diamond as well. So we also know that the Louis and Marie Antoinette did not have very good fates as well. So pretty much everyone who has really worn or been attached to the diamond has had an untimely death, and just kind of following, the idea that this diamond is cursed. So I want to touch on this metaphysically because ultimately, yes, crystals hold energy. We know that. We talk a lot about crystal jewelry as well and how we can wear crystal jewelry to help enhance our lives, really use them as touchstones. But I do believe that crystals hold energy. And of course, the idea that this diamond, the Regent diamond, holds energy seems pretty real. I think it was smart of those robbers to probably not take a curse along with them during all of this. So I thought that was just really interesting when I saw even the first story of why not take this huge diamond. And then I went into the rabbit hole of that curse. But why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about the curse of the Regent diamond? And that is cleansing our crystals, cleansing our crystal jewelry, putting intention on it, and really paying attention to it. So the same way that this diamond has held this energy over the years, the crystals that we wear in jewelry energetically can carry that same kind of stuff. If you wear certain crystals on very high stress days, I recommend cleansing them and cleansing your own energy as well. Another really aspect of this whole story is the idea of using crystals as adornments, as talismans, and that this practice has been around for really as long as we can remember. And a lot of the time now in history, we do see it obviously in things like crown jewels, royal jewelry. Those were the people who could really afford gemstones like that. But we really do see that people have been using the power of crystals and their meanings and their healing properties for a very, very long time. So I know we've been hearing a lot of stories about the Louvre robbery this week, but I hope that this one was a little different for you, a little, kind of more interesting way to look at it, and ultimately kind of leaving you with the question, did the robbers not take the Regent Diamond because it would be so hard to fence or to sell, or did they not take it because they did not want the curse of the Regent Diamond to be following them? Something to think about. Magic in media for sure. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is this week, we have a little crossover between zodiac seasons, right? We are leaving Libra season by Libra season, but it has left us this week with a beautiful new moon that we had on Monday. So, like I said, we're feeling that switch really today from Libra to Scorpio. So since that's happening right now, today, the 22nd, we are going to talk a little bit about the difference of those signs, what features we can really tap into ourselves when we are thinking Libra, when we are thinking Scorpio. And of course, to tie in our media aspect, I am going to go through some celebrities who are these signs and how we can see these characteristics in them as well. So, starting with really the subject of the new moon that we had on Monday, new moons are a great time to set intentions, to plant seeds, and really start new beginnings, right? So, Libras in general are very social. They're very charming. They're very intelligent, very soft, and very likable. They're very pleasing people. So, some celebrities that are Libras that we can start to think about, where do we see these traits? Serena Williams, Will Smith, Bruno Mars, Kate Winslet, Gwyneth Paltrow, Jenna Ortega. Now let's just start even with the first two there. Serena Williams and Will Smith, incredibly intelligent, incredibly hardworking, very charming, very socially, people are drawn to them. They have pretty good reputation, as far as the celebrity kind of circuit. When you think of people like Serena Williams or Will Smith, I think very hardworking, top of really what they're doing. Bruno Mars, very likable. Kate Winslet, very likable. Gwyneth Paltrow, somewhat polarizing, but ultimately I feel she is pretty likable, very charming, and does have a very soft demeanor or soft way of presenting themselves. And when you say soft, it's kind of like their features, they're not too intense. They're very soft, welcoming, and kind of draw you in. Now, one of my favorite Libra jokes that I use all the time is that Kim Kardashian is a Libra, and that's all you need to know. And I say that as a joke because it's she loves to have eyes on her. That is another big part of Libras. They love attention and they love eyes on them, but they want to be liked and they want to charm you. They really want to turn on the charm, turn on the looks, smile. Another feature of Libras is they have a very soft face or a very symmetrical face, very round, very pleasing to the eye and nice to look at. And when you really start looking through lots of lists of Libras, that is true. Now, are they the most and I guess when we say looks or presenting, are they the most beautiful people? maybe not the most beautiful or intense looking, but they are very like soft and easy to look at, which is like what draws people in that way. But yeah, I do always think of Kim Kardashian as a big Libra, because she is very intelligent too, and a businesswoman in her own way of how she is leveraging her image and her charm to build her business. So that's just a little bit of, you know, Libra-ness that we can think about as we say bye bye to Libra season and kind of think about what we want to create with this Libra new moon energy. So the new moon was on Monday, and the energy of the moon sticks around for like 3 days before, 3 days after, I say, after a big kind of full moon or new moon. So if you wanted to manifest with this energy that we're still sitting in with the Libra new moon, it would be maybe a business thing, right? Intelligent. How can I be strategic? Or how can I be more likable, more presentable? And those are kind of intentions or things that we could work on during the Libra new moon. But like I said, bye bye Libra season. Libra season is over. It's kind of sending us off with that Libra new moon, which is why I wanted to touch on the energy of it. And it is still just like so present this week, that we had to do a little Libra check-in. And I like that this gave us the opportunity to kind of highlight two different zodiacs. So we're going to talk about Scorpios next, because I do feel like when we switch into these zodiac seasons, you feel that shift of energy, right? Like Libra is like that fall, like soft energy. And now we're going into Scorpio season, which is intensity. Halloween is next week, kind of spooky, moody, darker. And there is like, we feel it, so we're that magic is really around all of us, is when we, like I said, when we feel these shifts of seasons, like we all feel them too. Gotta take a little water break, so I can keep talking. But yeah, so that is where we see it all around us. And I call this even being like astrologically aware of what's happening around you and how it's affecting you. Simply knowing what season we're in, like that, like going from Libra season to Scorpio season, you can like feel it out. So pay attention to that this week as we see that shift from Libra into Scorpio season today, October 22nd. So Scorpio season. What do we have to look forward to with Scorpio season? Like I said, it's darker, it's moodier. Scorpios are very secretive, known for kind of, not letting as many people in, keeping more to themselves. They can be very biting with their words when they want to. Again, Halloween is next week. That moody intensity of the veil getting thinner is a part of this time of year as well. So that veil getting thinner is again the boundary between living and dead around Halloween. That's why we associate it with spooky season and ghosts, because that barrier between the living and the dead is getting thinner. That veil is getting thinner, and it's welcoming in this, which we personally love, witchy, spooky, moody, gloomy time of year. Another way to kind of look at this too is we're going from fall into winter. Again, a transition time, really, when we're in this Scorpio season. We're coming out of fall and into transitioning into this like cold, dark winter times, which is an in-between. So right now, this time of year, Scorpio season is very much an in-between time. We're transitioning. But to continue to build on what can we expect, what can we pay attention to with Scorpio season, let's delve into a few well-known celebrity Scorpios and where we see their Scorpio-ness showing up already, like immediately. First person I want to talk about is SZA. Love SZA. She's a great music artist, but think about her songs. I just killed my ex. Like very biting, very moody, very like just not mincing any words and going after what she wants to say, even if it is a little harsh. And I feel like that is definitely a Scorpio energy. Now, another famous Scorpio we have is Anna Wintour. Huge thing that I think of are the way she always wears sunglasses, right? This is the Vogue editor in chief that just stepped down last year, but she's very iconic, for her bob and always wearing sunglasses. How secretive looking is that for a Scorpio to literally always be wearing sunglasses? And that's like a part of what you're known for in your aesthetic. That is so Scorpio, like wearing sunglasses all the time, secretive, not letting people look you in the eyes like that. It's like a kind of intensity. So when I was researching this and realized it, I was like, wow, that's literally a physical manifestation of her Scorpio-ness. That is a huge part of her image. Some other moody musician Scorpios we have are Lorde and Nelly. Very different music genres, but I thought that was interesting. Lorde, very moody. Nelly, if you go back in some of his discography, there's some kind of like moody R&B music there too. So very Scorpio energy to see them on there. Now we're going to delve into some actresses that I thought were interesting Scorpios, and that is Julia Roberts and Rachel McAdams. So what I want to focus on with these two, Julia Roberts and Rachel McAdams, these are huge rom-com girls, all right? This is The Notebook, Your Best Friend's Wedding, Runaway Bride. I mean, Julia Roberts was really like the rom-com queen for so long. And Rachel McAdams, again, The Notebook alone, such a romantic, sensual movies. And a big aspect of Scorpio we haven't touched on yet is that they are very sexual. All different zodiac signs rule different parts of the body, and the Scorpio sign actually rules genitals. So, looking at these actresses, Julia Roberts and Rachel McAdams, they were in so many love or kind of rom-com theme movies that have that intensity of sensuality and sexuality in them. So, I thought that that was really interesting too, that, in their acting life, they're playing out a lot of these like love roles. I mean, honestly, think of Julia Roberts and Pretty Woman with even the sexual aspect of Scorpio, right? With one of her really big breakout roles being a very like sexual role, and then knowing that Scorpio rules the genitalia, it really gets you thinking. And this last one I just had to throw on here almost as like a personal media thing, but I'm a huge Girls fan from HBO. So if you love Girls and you love Adam Driver, he is a Scorpio as well. Adam Driver as an actor, very intense. In Star Wars, he played Kylo Ren. I think that's the name of the like baddie that he plays in Star Wars, but again, very intense. And as an actor, it's kind of like known he's a very intense actor, and has a very like Scorpio energy to him. So if you know who Adam Driver is, he's a Scorpio too, Scorpio actor. So those are just a few Scorpios, and why I like to touch on celebrities when it comes to astrology and zodiac in that way is I think this is one of the easiest ways to really get to know the signs and their meanings is studying celebrity birth charts, celebrity signs, and really seeing like in the public where we are seeing these characteristics. It can be really fun if you're into that kind of stuff. A few other like notable Scorpios were like Winona Ryder, Beetlejuice fame, like think of the kind of movies that are attached to them, and it really does connect. I mean, I do think of Winona Ryder too as a very like moody actress. Edward Scissorhands, I'm like thinking of all the movies that they've been in now. Tim Burton, she was a huge like Tim Burton like inspiration actress. And Tim Burton has a very, I think, Halloweeny, spooky, moody, intense kind of aesthetic in his movies too. So when we really start to put all these kind of pieces together, it makes sense. And I think that it helps us to make sense of ourselves, especially if astrology and zodiac stuff is kind of new to you. This can be a great way to really get your feet wet with it and learn about more. So that is our little astrology Libra Scorpio season switch over story. And get ready because Scorpio season is just starting, right? Like it is just the start of it. Halloween next week. Get ready for the moody, get ready for the spooky and dark, but all in the fun, best ways, if you know what I mean. So that is that is what I have for you there. Now, this next story, really interesting. We're going to a little bit of reality TV current happenings here with Love is Blind. There's a lot of ways in reality TV in shows like Love is Blind. I mean, I see a lot of people do astrology breakdowns of the people on Love is Blind. And that is really interesting too, just pointing out that magic really is in all kinds of media. But what we are going to talk about is on Love is Blind, Sparkle Megan, had a conversation with Jordan, who she is engaged to from the show. If you don't watch Love is Blind, none of that means anything to you, but we are getting to how we can all connect to it. But anyway, Sparkle Megan talked about house numerology. And house numerology is something I have always used like pretty much forever, my whole life. So it's something that I've always known about. My mom taught me about it, but this is something that I think is really cool that she's talking about it on this show and really bringing it to the masses and explaining it and how people can use it. So Love is Blind, Sparkle Megan was talking about house numerology. So this is the idea of taking your address, adding up all the numbers in it to get one number. Then what that number is essentially holds the energy of this house that you are in, what will happen while you're living there, what you can build there, what's going to be best kind of for the energy of that house. So it is really interesting. So think if your address was 333, you add those all together, your house would be a 9, and 9 is actually an ending kind of thing. Compassion, endings. So this would be like let's say it's the last place you live before you move to another state. It'd be very fitting for you to be in a 9 house, knowing like, oh, we're going to live in this house for like one more year in Colorado before we move to California. And that is kind of the way you can look at house numerology. So let's say your address was 1122. So you'd add 1 and 1 for 2, 1, 1, 2, 2. Adding all that up, you're going to get 6. And 6 for houses would be love, responsibility, families, nurturing, warmth, service. Sometimes the challenges of this could be over responsibility. So I would say, if this is maybe a house where once you start growing your family, there's some nurturing happening there. Yes, family and caregiving, but maybe it's the house you are growing out of, right? Maybe you have like your 3rd or 4th child in that house and you've kind of outgrown it. It's been a place to grow with love and responsibility, but then it is a place of service as well. And once it starts to get a little overwhelming, maybe it's time to move on to the new place. So this is very interesting. There's lots of ways you can look at house numerology. Obviously, it's very specific to what's happening in your life and what's happening around you. It is something that I will be so honest with real estate. I almost feel like intuitively, it's something to pay attention to for sure. I actually had one of my metaphysical teachers when I was in the house buying process. Every time I would show her a house, she would add up the numbers and say, oh, it's a this kind of house. Oh, it's a this kind of house. So this is something that I've been very aware of and watching. But sometimes what I'm getting at is we cannot choose our address numbers, right? Especially in the real estate world today. So the way that this really shows up for us can be very interesting because it's almost like we find our house and your house is, okay, this is the house for us. And then when you do the numerology, it's almost like then the house is telling you this is what I'm going to be for. So the point that I'm trying to make is we can often change our address to be like, oh, well, this is the house that I want to be really like abundant and prosperous. That would be an 8. An 8 house is for power and prosperity. It's where you would make a lot of money, a good place to bring in abundance. We can't change our address to make it an 8, but if you get your house and it is an 8, it's kind of a clue to what that house is going to bring you or what energy it's going to hold. So this really leads us into the part of our weekly segment of what can you do this week? So what can you do this week to bring magic into your life, to bring magic, in this case, into your house even, and that is do your own house numerology this week. I am going to, after I explain exactly how to do it and one other tip, I am going to run through really quickly just like the different numbers and what they mean in house numerology. But this is really, like I said, leading us into our what you can do segment this week. So what you can do this week is figure out your house numerology, where you see that showing up in your current house, what kind of energy is there, and how you can best work with it. So, like I said, to get the number, you're just adding up all the numbers in your address. But there is a little note that I want to put in where, let's say you have an apartment building where everyone is, 333 Main Street, and then your apartment is like 6B or like or C or whatever. There's a letter somewhere in your address that makes it unique to you. So if you live in an apartment or building where you have a letter, what you do to simplify that is make it the letter of the alphabet or the number that coincides with its letter of the alphabet. So A would be 1, B would be 2, C would be 3, all the way down to Z would be 26. And then you would add that to the digits. So let's say it was 12B, then B is 2 in the alphabet, right? So you would 12B, add 1, add 2, and add 2 to make 5. So you always really want to get it down to one number. So you just keep adding all those numbers together until you get it down to one number. But that is how you do it. And if me explaining it doesn't make sense, it's a simple kind of little search of how to do it and add up those numbers. But I did want to note that if you live somewhere where there's a letter in your address, add the number that would add on to it from its alphabetical number, right? So C would be 3, D would be 4, so on and so forth. But now we are going to break down what it means for the houses. So if you are in a one house is good for independence and leadership. This is a great place for entrepreneurs, ambitious individuals, people seeking personal growth, has the energy of self-reliance, innovation, and confidence. Now, a 2 house is great for harmony and relationships. This is good for couples, families, those who value peace and cooperation. It has an energy of balance, because we're seeing the 2 here, as well as emotional support and sensitivity. Now, 3 would be creativity and social life. So this is a great place for artists, entertainers, social butterflies, people who like to be very social. I could see a lot of 3s being, your young era, or maybe this is when you're living in an apartment. And it really just has the energy of joy, fun, expressing yourself, very free. 4, stability and protection. 4, think of like 4 pillars, really set a solid foundation. So this is great for organizing, long-term security. 4's, again, foundation would be a really like strong foundation. Honestly, if you were building your own home somewhere and it was a 4, that would be like really, really auspicious. And auspicious just really means like good luck, good vibes, good energy around it. So if you ever hear someone say that, oh, that's very auspicious, it really just means you have like luck around you in that way. So yeah, if you were building a house and your address was a 4 where you're building, that would be very auspicious for you. 5, change and adventure. So this would be a good temporary home. Think travelers, free seeking people, short term leases, excitement, freedom, versatility. Maybe this would even be like an Airbnb that if you were renting it out or planning to only use it like part time, again, travelers, freedom, different kind of ways to use it, variability, stuff like that. 6, love and responsibility. So we talked about this one a little bit earlier, but this would be a good one for families, caregivers. So think even generational living, if you're living with older family members and taking care of them, service, warmth, kind of just like community and connection. 7, spirituality and solitude. So if you were in a place where I would say you were writing a book and needed to be alone, or even working on a project and needed to be alone, 7 would be great for that. It is great for introspection, quiet, and learning. So people who are really embodying even hermit energy, so going inward, isolating, a 7 house would be really good for that. Or let's say you're going to like rent someplace to do as a writer for 2 weeks and bust your book out. If it was a 7 house, like very auspicious, would support obviously the thinking, the introspection, and the quiet of the solitude of 7. So working our way down, that brings us to 8, which is power and prosperity, abundance. So this would be a great place for business-minded people, professionals. Even think, honestly, if your business has an 8 address, I would say that that is really auspicious, really good for you as well. And it has this energy of abundance and achievement. So love that. 9, we talked about a little bit too. This would be compassions and endings. So people who are very healer, artists, humanitarians, really like, I even think there's almost like I don't know, like a retirement home energy to 9. But yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but a retirement home energy. It's very like wisdom, empathy, completion. So like letting go. 9s are about release a lot of the time too. So that is endings. And really just having a gentle ending. Like I said, even that doesn't mean like death, a lot of the time maybe it means the ending of a chapter, an ending of our time in a certain city or state. So it can take on a lot of like different meanings depending on what you're going through personally, obviously. And if these show up directly, something you can pay attention to, but I'll be honest, I don't as much, would be master number houses. This is 11 and 22. So if you added everything up and it did come to 11, master numbers would be like intuition, highly spiritual individuals, and 22, same thing, master number, great for big dreams, big manifestations. Like I said, why I don't really focus on master numbers for houses is because to me, they're not specific enough as 1 through 9. And they're really just both saying very spiritual, like very spiritual, heightened intuition, heightened manifestation. And I don't know, to me, it doesn't seem as accessible for your own house. And I honestly think if I had a house or focused on just that in my house, it would be a little too intense, So something to think about. But I definitely really stick to more 1 through 9. I do not dabble as much in master numbers. It's just not, they don't speak to me as much in that way. So yeah. So that is house numerology. And how it can show up for you. Add up your address, and we kind of went through, once you get that number, go back and listen what house you had, and we touched on all of the different numbers and all the different house energies that you could have from that. So again, what you can do this week, for the magic around you and the magic in media comes from Love is Blind. So thank you, Sparkle Megan, for kind of showing us that. And if you watch Love is Blind and you understand what I mean, even better. So Thank you all so much. That brings us to the end of our first episode of Magic in Media. I am Carly D here with the Vibe Collective. I will be back next week. It is Halloween week, so we'll have some spooky stories and different ways that we are seeing magic in the media as far as that. But we're definitely going to be talking about Halloween next week. So get ready for that. I'm really excited, and thank you so much. If you tuned in and you got all the way to the end, please give us some feedback. Let us know what you think about the podcast. Let us know what you'd like to see more of, what topics you think are interesting, and all that fun stuff. But I will see you next week. Have a great Libra new moon, Scorpio switchover, and find the magic in your own life. We'll see you next week.